These days, nitroglycerin patches are becoming more and more popular as a treatment for Achilles tendonitis, and we are often asked by patients whether it's worth adding that to their treatment. Now, I thought it's about time that I look at the current research on this, and we're going to first look at why people think it might help treat Achilles tendonitis. Then we'll look at evidence on or research on humans. Is there evidence that it does actually help it? We'll look at what potential side effects it may have, and finally, I'll give you my opinion as to when it may be useful to try and under what circumstances. Worth noting is that there are several different names for the same substance, so let me read you off the different names that this video applies to. So nitroglycerin, trinitroglycerin TNG, nitroglycerate nitrate GTN, as well as 1,2,3-trinitrooxypropane. Are all the same type of substance or different names for the same thing. So this video is relevant to those as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mareka. I'm one of the physiotherapists from treatmyachilles.com, where you can get online physiotherapy assessment as well as treatment of any type of Achilles injury. If you would like more information about that, check out the description of this video. I'll put a link to our website in there. Okay, so how is nitroglycerin supposed to help Achilles tendons recover more quickly? Well, when nitroglycerin reacts to oxygen, it forms nitric oxide. And when they look at injured tendons, now both overuse injuries like tendonitis or acute injuries like tendon tears, researchers have found that there's nitric oxide available in those tendons or present in those tendons. So then they wanted to understand, is this nitric oxide actually part of the injury, or is it there because it's helping healing? And to test this, they first tested it on rats. And they looked at what happens if they suppress the nitric oxide production within rats and with injured tendons. And what they found was that the rats that didn't have that much nitric oxide in the tendon actually didn't recover that well. Their tendons were weaker and it was just not as strong as the other ones. But now they still didn't understand how the nitric oxide actually brought about these positive effects. So what they did next was they took human tendon cells and put them in a petri dish in a lab and added nitric oxide to that. And what they found was that it increased the collagen synthesis. And it is therefore thought that nitric oxide plays a really important part in collagen production, as well as producing strong and healthy collagen fibers and cells. And collagen is the main building block of tendons. So that's how it's thought to help the healing process. But just because something works in a petri dish or on rats does not mean that it actually has that effect in real life on humans. So it's really worth to look at the research on humans as well to see if it actually helps recovery. So what does the research on humans actually show? Is there any evidence that nitroglycerin patches can help speed up your recovery or benefit your recovery from Achilles tendonitis? Well, the short answer is we don't really know. So let's look at two research studies that's come out recently. The first is a literature review from 2019, where they looked at all the randomized controlled trials on this subject. Now, with lit reviews, they look at the quality of the studies and they try to synthesize the results and describe what might be the best treatment for a condition. So what they found was that, yeah, there seems to be some evidence that nitroglycerin patches can help recovery from Achilles tendonitis. However, they still recommended that it shouldn't be used on its own. It wasn't enough for complete recovery. It should be combined with a loading plan or loading program. That just means your rehab plan, so the strength training stuff. But they also pointed out that the research that they looked at or that they found was of a rather low quality. They were small studies and there were other problems with the design as well. I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the second study is a meta-analysis from 2022. And with the meta-analysis, they also do a lit review, but they then go and combine all the results from the studies that they include. And the idea is that you get some statistical indication of how useful a treatment can be. Now, what they found was that actually there's very little evidence that nitroglycerin patches helps recovery of from Achilles tendonitis, and if it does, it's only by a little bit that it may aid it. So the big problem with the research studies that's out there, and I'm not talking about the lit review and the meta-analysis, but the studies that they looked at, the randomized controlled trials, is that they're either of very small design, so not a lot of participants. And the problem with that is that a small study, if you don't have a lot of people in it, can either show you, it can overestimate the benefit or underestimate the benefit of it. So it can either be that actually these things are more useful, or actually they are much less useful than what we think. Then the second problem is that a lot of those research studies was done by the same research group. And one of the researchers there actually declared that they have a patent for nitroglycerin patches. So the problem with that is it may mean that they have a bias in their research, because they can potentially make money if they can show that nitroglycerin patches is effective. So there's a trust issue with the results of these studies. Now, what do you do if the research can't give you a proper answer? Should you be using these things or should you not be using them? Well, one of the ways that we decide whether a treatment is worth trying is we look at the side effects, because if the side effects are really bad, then it's really not worth trying it if you're not sure that it's going to give you a positive effect. So let's look at those. Now, the only side effects reported in the research for nitroglycerin patches, and we're only talking about patches here, not tablets or anything, this applies only to patches, is headaches or rashes. So it seems to be a relatively safe thing to use. Also, if you are on medications like heart medication, or you have any chronic conditions, these patches may influence you differently. So it's always good to speak with your doctor and get it prescribed through a medical professional rather than try and get hold of it by yourself. What is my advice on this? Well, looking at the research, there are some indications that actually maybe it can help Achilles tendonitis symptoms. Also, if you listen to patients who's used it, there are quite a few who reports having found positive effects from it. So they weren't making progress with their rehab, and then they added this in, and finally the pain disappeared and they could do something. The side effects also doesn't seem to be significant. So for me, if you're not making progress with your rehab or you feel a bit stuck, it is something that I think is worth trying. But you don't want to use only this and think that, oh, the pain is gone, I don't have to do anything else. You still have to do the load management, rehab, all of the other things that we know has strong evidence behind it to strengthen your tendon. So use it if you want, get it prescribed by a doctor definitely, but don't use it as a standalone treatment. Brilliant, hope you found that useful. Now remember, if you need any help with any type of Achilles injury, you're welcome to consult one of the team via video call. The link to our website is in the description of this video. Take care.